This is part three of a many part series on Trump isn't the problem. Sin is our greatest threat. Sin is the real problem that each soul has to reckon with, each soul has to come to terms with. As I talked about in part one, as I started this lesson or these several lessons that I plan to continue in, that our nation, along with around the world, are fixated on Donald Trump becoming president. That so many are fearful, so many are looking in his direction, that he is the problem, the main source of the issues that we're facing. And if he gets reelected, he's really going to be a problem, and the world would never be the same. As I mentioned in part one, I did a lesson back in January of 2021 at our congregation. And I had a lesson that I had prepared. And once our current administration took office, I changed what I was going to talk about. As the book of 1 Samuel in chapter 8 references some strong correlations. As our nation, our society, the people wanted the current administration in office. What have they gotten? What are we experiencing in this world? Is it better than the path we were on with the previous administration, or is it worse? Each of us can state our reasons, but there are certain things that are very and fundamentally clear. Prices are higher. There are many situations going on in our nation, and it hasn't been this way for many generations, and most likely not generations that people that are alive right now have ever seen. But see here in 1 Samuel in chapter 8, the Israelites, they wanted a king. And Samuel, that was godly. His sons, they weren't righteous. And so as the elders and the people went to Samuel, begging, pleading their case, we want a king to lead us. And when Samuel went to God, God told Samuel, they are rejecting me. It's not you. It is me. It is God who they are rejecting. Now, as I'm going to continue in some of these verses where I left off in verse 9 in 1 Samuel chapter 8. Now, in verse 10, Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, this is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. As Samuel was continuing from verse 9. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses. And they will run in front of his chariots. In verse 12, some he will assign to be commanders of 1,000 and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest. And still others will make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. And Samuel doesn't stop there. He continues. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants, not the people, his attendants. In verse 15, he will take 1/10 of your grain and all of your vintage and give it to his official and attendants. Now I'm going to stop there so we can continue in some more parts in this lesson. Now, is that the type of king that the Israelites were looking for? This king is going to claim his rights. This king is going to do what he wants to do. He's going to serve his people, not the people. Now, look what's happening in our world right now. Are the people being served properly? Are vets being taken care of? Are people who have been in this country for generations, are they being taken care of right now? Is inflation helping everyone? These higher prices, the uncertainties, the stock market, people losing their positions, their careers, don't know which way to turn. And all we have are people talking right now, and they're looking at, in a sense, one main source as being the problem. Our problem is sin. We're not living godly. We don't seek to want to live for the Lord. And when we don't live for the Lord, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get this uncertainty. We're going to get these disasters and these situations and pains and sufferings that we're facing. It is because of sin. It's not because we think that one person is the problem. Sin is the problem. As God told Samuel, they are rejecting me. They want what they want, but they're not going to get what they want. And the people that wanted the current administration in office, we see those who are backtracking. And they're saying, I voted that way in 2020, but I won't do that again for 24. They see what is going on. Now, God is telling Samuel what will happen with this king. So God was up front with Samuel. And that's what he shared with the people, what the Lord had told him. Now, what if the Lord told us what was going to take place for 4 years of someone being president? What if the Lord told us clearly, you're going to struggle a lot more. You're going to have higher prices. You're going to have uncertainty. You're going to be stressed. You're going to wonder what is happening to your country. If he would have told you these things, what would you have done differently? Would you vote it the same way? Would you wanted that same person to be your president? and I beg to differ, that many people would have voted differently. They would have thought about who they were voting for if they had a futuristic view from 2020 to 2024. And if you knew everything was going to take place, would you have made the same decision? And this is what Samuel is talking about when he told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. We got to be careful of who we ask for. We have to look at the Lord's word for our guidance. Let God be our guide, and we'll make better decisions versus the things of this world. And as I mentioned, this is what Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. Now he's sharing all these things were going to happen, what this king was going to do during his rule. And it wasn't going to benefit the people. The king was going to benefit himself and those who are in close proximity with his kingship. Isn't that some of the things that's going on right now? And this is because people are rejecting the Lord. And when we reject the Lord, we will fail. We will deal with things that we don't want to deal with. And if we're not mindful, it will be too late. It will be too late to turn around our lives and live for the Lord. It will be too late for when the Lord comes again and judge our souls. We're not going to be ready for his kingdom. It's too late for everlasting life. The time is right now to anchor your soul. The time is right now to take your soul very seriously. Take everlasting life seriously. What is so hard about that for us? God created a soul in every one of us. And how we live is connected to our souls. What our heart is like is connected to our souls. Our heart is the true nature of who we are. And God knows our hearts. And if we want to be in heaven, we're going to be ready. We're going to fear the Lord. We're going to get serious about getting to heaven. We're going to walk away from sin. We're going to look to the Lord as our King, not this world, not what we're told. God being the foundation, the spiritual foundation. Come to the Lord right now. Seek his will. Live for his purpose. Live to be righteous. Live to be truthful. Live to be just. Live to serve him for his everlasting kingdom.